Welcome to Books You Haven't Read. I'm Nate Rankin. Get that coffee. Yes? I'm being sued by Better Than Food for copyright infringement.
I can't remember which American writer it was. I heard him speak and he said that his job is to comfort the disturbed and to disturb the comfortable.
He kept the Marxist books in his room, took them to the library for renewal, carried them back home. He let classmates read the titles if they were curious, just to see their silly faces crinkle up, but he didn't show the books to his mother. The books were private, like something you find and hide, some lucky piece that contains the secret of who you are. The books themselves were secret, forbidden and hard to read. They altered the room, charged it with meaning. The drabness of his surroundings, his own shabby clothes, were explained and transformed by these books. He saw himself as part of something vast and sweeping. He was the product of a sweeping history, he and his mother, locked into a process, a system of money and property that diminished their human worth every day, as if by scientific law. LIBRA by DeLillo. So, LIBRA is a speculative novel that tracks the life of Lee Harvey Oswald from his days as a loner in high school with a crooked smile and affinity for communist politics, to his days as a Marine, to his defection to the USSR, and ultimately his return to America and the events of November 22nd, 1963. The book also follows a number of CIA conspirators, many of whom are veterans of the Bay of Pigs invasion, some fictional, some not, as well as some interesting sections that take the perspective of Marina Oswald, Lee Harvey Oswald's Russian wife, as well as some really brilliant sections with Jack Ruby. Now, I don't know how much you can spoil this book because the events of the book are a matter of historical record, but assume spoilers throughout the rest of the video. This book posits a CIA conspiracy at the center of the JFK assassination, and it posits a conspiracy from rogue elements within the CIA, mostly disgruntled veterans of the Bay of Pigs invasion who are anti-Castro, but don't feel like they got the support from Kennedy during the invasion. And this, it initially starts out as an assassination attempt. They want to get a shooter that will miss, but that they can then pin the blame on Castro and reinvigorate the war effort against Cuba and sort of communism at large. The two themes that give this novel shape are the themes of contradiction and the theme of fate. And I want to start with the theme of contradiction because what I think this novel really achieves is how it doesn't ever try and fully resolve who Lee Harvey Oswald is. Don DeLillo, in an interview with Rolling Stone that he gave about the time this book came out, talked about how Lee Harvey Oswald was always a man of contradictions. For example, he was a Marine, but someone who also defected to Russia, loyalties to both US and USSR. When he came back from the USSR, he had prepared a list of answers that he would give to questions he thought might be asked of him as, someone that had defected to the USSR. One of them were a list of answers that, portrayed him as a kind of tourist or just an innocent traveler to Russia. The other set of answers was something much more hostile and something that was much more clearly in defense of the Soviet and communist cause. This novel left me with the eerie feeling that not only are we, the reader, unable to resolve or to completely know who Lee Harvey Oswald was, but that, to a certain extent, Oswald didn't even know himself. He couldn't even completely resolve the contradictions in himself. And I thought that was brought alive really well. You get a lot of indecisiveness on Oswald's part, and then you also, as a consequence of that, you feel the fragility of history itself, that things could have gone one way or the other very easily. And the really astute thing that I think DeLillo dissects or diagnoses about Oswald is the fact that Oswald sees himself as this agent of history, or at the very least, sees himself as someone looking for an excuse to create history, to take part in a historical moment. And you can kind of get that with his communist leanings, that a lot of the appeal of communism is the appeal of taking part in a worldwide revolution, right? And this is where we get our second theme of fate. Obviously, the title is a reference to Oswald's zodiac sign, Libra, the scales. We could have gone one way or the other. But recurrent throughout this book is this deep feeling of coincidence and luck, that there's something propelling history towards Oswald. You think about all the things that really did need to happen for this event to take place. Oswald he moved to New Orleans in the summer of 1963, only comes back to Dallas in October, where he happens to get the job at the Texas School Book Depository, where he shoots Kennedy from the 6th floor. If he doesn't have that job, does he even attempt it? It's hard to believe that he does. And so, but that kind of coincidence, that kind of event is one of many that just seems to propel Oswald throughout the novel towards this inevitable end. Now, I do think the book manages to, make a character or a series of characters out of this kind of cosmic nudging. It personifies fate through these rogue anti-Castro CIA elements that are sometimes literally whispering in Oswald's ear. They're making constant contact, and this is an array of characters that are both fictional and non-fictional. There's a really interesting character you gotta look up named, I believe it's pronounced Georges de Mohrenschildt, and he was a guy that we know talked to Oswald after he came back from Russia. But he is one of these characters literally in the ear, trying to nudge Oswald to, initially they're trying to do it in Miami, eventually because he lives in Dallas, they nudge him to the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. While this book does posit a second shooter, a grassy knoll shooter, it is, I think, less interested in the actual truthfulness of a second shooter so much as what that second shooter represents. That second shooter is that agent of fate personified. This whole series of characters of fate is always propelling Oswald to become the man of history that he has always thought of himself as being, or perhaps wanted to be. Another thing that this novel does really well is it fully shows how characters are motivated simultaneously by both rational and irrational means, right? So you can look at the conspirators, the agents of fate, and most of these men are driven by personal grievance or vendetta over the failed Bay of Pigs, the failure to get to Castro so far. All the while that's animating them, they're plotting out this very meticulous and this very rational and well-plotted assassination plot. Another example is Jack Ruby, who primarily throughout this book is concerned with his own financial debts, his own financial interests, and that's a very rational thing to be worried about. At the same time, he is a very, what I would say, irrationally patriotic person. He's very gung-ho about the US of A. And these two things, these two contradictions these two motivations are brought together at the end of the book in concert with each other. So that when the conspirators go to Jack Ruby, they're convincing him to kill Oswald with both the rational, hey, we'll forgive your debts, but also the irrational, this is something that needs to be done in service of our country, in service of kind of the same animating feature of Oswald, this need to be an agent of history. It's the theme of contradiction all over again. It is, I think, really necessary to enjoying and understanding both this novel and its real-life events, as well as life itself. We live life as this experience of contradictions, and I think that's really something that DeLillo gets across great here. So I read 14 of Don DeLillo's novels now. I have 3 left. That is Ratner Star, The Names, and Underworld. I'm saving Underworld for last, and I'll definitely do a video on that. Might do on the other 2. If that sounds like something interested to you, then maybe think about subscribing. I don't know. But of all the novels that I've read by Don DeLillo, I thought this was the best at escaping that kind of trademark DeLillian speech. You know, the rag on DeLillo is that all of his characters tend to sound the same. And that's still there in this novel, but I would say that it's because, obviously, the amount of research that he had to do, but also just for the fact that it's based on real-life characters. The characters tend to be more individuated, and I think the novel is better for it. I would highly recommend this novel. It's easily in my top 2 Don DeLillo novels of all time. In fact, I think this is honestly as good of an entry point in DeLillo probably as any others. It's either this or White Noise. I can genuinely say that I love them both. If you've read DeLillo novels before, let me know what your favorites are, or if you'd like to see more DeLillo reviews, let me know in the comments down below. And hey, look at this. I got a second review done. Hopefully more to come. Never checked in on Gnome, my co-host, Gnome Chomsky. Gnome, do you have anything to say to the people?
In fact, if the system functions well, it ought to have a liberal bias, or at least appear to.
He's so wise. Alright, thanks for watching. Catch you next time.